What is going on, Magpie Army? Welcome back to another episode of the Dutchy and Swoop Show. Big episode coming up, big game coming up against the formidable Hawks.
Yes. Friday,
Dutchy?
I'm in love. Friday night footies, nothing better.
Oh, it is going to be...
Pies under lights against the Hawks. We've kind of struggled with the Hawks in the past, haven't we?
It's been wild. Like I put up a stat the other day. Out of the last 27 games, we've won 7 and they've won 20.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? Yeah, it's just the way they match up against us.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it is, and it's, it's really, it's one of those things, isn't it? They just always matched up well against us. And even when we're up the top and they're down the bottom, they've always performed really well. So it'll be interesting to see, especially given they've lost the last two.
That's the thing. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that later. But yeah, they're starting to the Hollywood Hawks are starting to wobble a little bit.
Yeah. Haven't seen as many celebrations lately, Hawks crew. All right, love to see that. Nothing better when you get these cocky Hawthorn players that just can't celebrate anymore because they're just not winning. Bad luck. And hopefully that continues.
Yeah.
I actually hate Hawthorn. I can't stand Hawthorn. I don't know what. Maybe it is because they've been a bit too good for us over those last 27 games.
What were your games against them like? I think I've said this before. Like that might have been the first game that I remember watching you play was against Hawthorn at the G.
Yeah, I mean when I was playing around that time, I think we had a pretty good patch against them. To be honest, I remember playing my 100th game against Hawthorn, the MCG, and we won comfortably. I remember tagging Luke Hodge at Marvel Stadium. I don't know what it was called back then, Telstra Stadium or whatever it was called. But
no way.
He got hold of me, I think, that day. A young Luke Hodge too, but we won comfortably again. So, look, I can't remember them really beating us during that era too much, maybe once or twice. But, shortly thereafter, they had,
Then they exploded,
correct.
get Buddy and all these sort of players.
That's
and,
right.
And Ruffy and stuff. And definitely a good team. But you know who else is a good team? The Pies.
Pies are looking sharp. They're looking sharp. We're getting more and more excited every week with the way they're tracking. And with 6 or 7 of their best, or probably more when you count McStay and Mitchell and these guys. But playing once again with no second key defender and getting away with it, which I was a little bit nervous about.
Me too.
They've really backed themselves in that regard. And they just support each other aerially so well. They don't really need it. Obviously, you're not going to not throw Darcy Moore back into the team, of course. But they're just supporting so well in D50 aerially. Howe coming over the top. Frampton's having record numbers with spoils at the moment and playing some good footy, isn't he?
Fantastic.
He's really sticking it up him, isn't he?
I remember saying at the start of the year, Reef had gone past him and Charlie Dean, and at the start of the year, he had, right? And unfortunately, injuries sort of happen, and Reef, unfortunately, has done his ACL, and Frampton was just that guy that was just waiting for the call up, and as soon as he got it, he's just like, I'm not letting this go. Yeah. This is my spot now.
He's an interesting player because, McInnes is good to come in, new player, pretty mobile and looks like a smart young footballer. But, Frampton's another 5 centimetres taller and he's got the long levers and he's more experienced. He understands the role. Yes, in the past he's made some mistakes here and there, but generally speaking, he's very diligent and accountable. His body works strong. He knows when to peel off and spoil. Give him a role and he'll take that task on board and have a 100% crack at it and do it relatively well more often than not, as you saw in that grand final on Andrews playing the defensive forward. Till half time he really couldn't get his game going, Andrews, and that's what he's their barometer.
Well, 100%. And then you see what happens in the last quarter where Frampton doesn't really play on him, and then Harris Andrews is one of the catalysts as to why they sort of came back the way that they did. Do you think, I've got a question for you just off the cuff. Do you think Billy Frampton is in line for maybe an All-Australian call-up, the way he's playing?
Oh, I'm not sure if he's doing enough offensively to be considered at this point in time. I just think if you look at all the defenders that they've had in the All-Australian over the last handful of years, they're looking for offensive defenders
the
now,
and
intercept markers. Like he's getting record numbers of spoils and he's not getting beaten in the contest. But he needs to probably be taking, 5 or 6 intercept marks a game or intercept possessions a game. I think he had 5 intercept possessions on the weekend, which is good. But racking up 2, 3, 4 intercept marks, and even, type of Darcy Moore marks where you're sailing across, third or fourth or fifth man into the contest and taking a big contested marks. And he can do that, but not consistently like those top enders still at this stage. Perfectly set up for Moore to come back in and play his normal role and be able to do exactly that. And him just to be more of the nullifier or that dour type of defender, so to speak.
Yeah, I just think he's just had such a incredible season so far, and Thilthorpe to 1 goal or 0 goals, and then Larky to a goal. I just think he's doing so well, and says a lot about that next man up mentality. And speaking of that next man up mentality, the Kangaroos game, an hour before the bounce, 2 players go down. So Bobby Hill, personal reasons, he doesn't play. Scott Pendlebury has gastro, so he doesn't play. And now all of a sudden, after just managing Steele Sidebottom out of the game, were 3 premiership players down. Braden Maynard goes down in 10 minutes. Do you reckon
Fly was a bit nervous going to that? Am I doing the right thing? Should we just bring Steele back in?
Yeah.
Or, but he stuck to his guns, to his credit. It's a courageous move, isn't it, really, knowing that you got so many out already and sticking to your guns.
Yeah, and I think the thing with that is, like, we've seen it time and time again, especially, that Fremantle game that we sort of talked about with those 4 players specifically going out, and these ones were, obviously they knew earlier on in the day that they weren't going to play, but for the kids to come in like Will Parker, Lockie Sullivan, Will Hayes on his debut, didn't rack up a lot of disposals, but they played their game really well, and then to go down a defender in Maynard against, I know they haven't been winning games, but the Kangaroos, we talked about it, they have a good forward line.
They do have a very dangerous, tall forward line. That was what we were really nervous about, going in with one key defender, and Maynard obviously didn't play as well. Howell's having to play tall, and even, a lot of their small defenders, even Quainer, played tall at various stages as well. So very nerve-wracking, and, is Zerhard kicked 3, Lucky only kicked the 1, you're saying. And so they didn't really do a lot of damage aerially, did they? But they kept themselves in the game till 3/4 time, and I'm thinking this could go either way. Really interesting also that they didn't sit on Nick Dacos, I thought. Given some of the advice by some of these other coaches, or a couple of the other senior coaches, it might have even been Hardwick. I can't remember who it was, but, sitting on Dacos late in games is probably more important than anything, and they let him go, and he ran right in that last quarter. So, but lot to like, and it just goes to show, though, if you've got good education from these players, good coaching, your recruiting's high end, you're bringing guys in, one troop out, the next one in, and they understand their role really well. And that's probably, in the past, a lot of these younger players are coming into the fold, and they don't quite understand their role within the team. But obviously Josh Fraser and Andy Otten and these guys have done a tremendous job in getting these young kids up and about and educated early. So when Will Hayes comes in, doesn't have to be a star necessarily and kick 3 goals in his first game. If he does, it's nice. It's just a bonus, but he understands what his role looks like in the structure, in defensive transition and putting pressure on the opposition. And they just come in and play their role, and it's really exciting to see. And Charlie West still hasn't had a run yet. We're a bit frustrated about that, but they're holding him back. I think he's starting to think what they're looking to do with him is just hold him back for as long as possible. So when he comes in,
he hits it hard.
And it might be next year. Who knows? I don't know. It depends on injuries, but it might not be halfway through the next year. But when they get him in, they want him in for the rest of their days and to become their next Jonathan Brown type.
Because you would think that when Charlie West, does come in, McStay's looking likely to come back in right after the bye.
Jeez, he looks good too, on track.
McStay? Yeah, he does. He was at training yesterday, fully training except for the match sim. He's running, he's jumping, he's doing everything that you sort of want him to do. So last week they said he was 2 to 6 weeks away. Yesterday they said he's 1 to 2 weeks away. He could play King's birthday. I think they'd give him to the bye. To then take on St Kilda at Marvel.
He's an important piece to the puzzle, isn't he? Just with his extra height, his ability to go in the ruck. Cox isn't playing overly well at the moment. Hopefully he can pick up his form before it's too late.
Yeah.
Geez, yeah, we really don't have, with my check being 6'3" and Membry being 6'2", whatever he is, you just need someone who's 6'5", 6'6", with those extra levers that can still play that role. So, yeah, that get-out kick's really important in the modern game and taking territory inside 50, and he's as good as anyone at bringing that ball to ground. In most cases, he marks it and gets a couple of goals a game where other players can't.
And I think that's the thing with us these last couple of years, and especially with McStay. He just hasn't had a good, clean run at it.
No.
And I don't know if he's injury prone as such. He just has unfortunate injuries, just a bunch of knees and stuff like that. But if you can get him right from after the bye to finals and working with Mychek and Membry, which was working at the start of the year, they were working really well together.
Yeah.
Yeah, the world is, and then with Jamie Elliott kicking, bags of goals as well.
Yeah,
that forward line is probably as potent as any, and it's not an A grade forward line like you would think, like with the Kerno and Mackay and all these sort of players. But they're just
pretty good. They're pretty good. They're more workman-like than those guys, aren't they? Though they don't sort of have off days.
Yeah,
they're more consistent.
Yep.
They're probably elite games aren't as strong as theirs.
Yeah, yep.
But you need a front 6 or 7 that can play their role and they can have an even number of goal kickers and the pressure is strong. You got speed in there. Collingwood got speed with obviously Hill and McCreary and Schultz when he's in the side at ground level, and then you got some really mobile forwards that can do it in the air and on the ground as well. And that's where I think Mackay at Carlton, if the ball hits the deck, he's nowhere to be seen, and the ball leaves the forward line too quick. Kerno, sort of, he's good at ground level, but good when the ball's in his area. When the ball's gone, I don't know if he defends that well, to be honest. Are we bagging Carlton here?
Yeah, we always are. It's always
good to
fun.
see him in a bit of trouble.
It's always fun.
Isn't it?
It's always
Isn't
fun
it?
to do that. They're imploding, which is always nice. But like
speed is like, without bagging Carlton too much, they lack a bit of speed and polish. I mean, that's what we've gone and got, isn't it, over the last few years? And
100%.
Zeroed in on the speed. Even Will Hayes coming on the weekend. So he's quick and skillful, and, you get opportunities, 2 opportunities a game. Those type of players kick too, like the Bobby Hills of the world. He might not play well, but he gets 4 or 5 tackles and he still kicks a couple of goals when they need to be kicked. So a little bit like Leon Davis back in the day. But it's exciting, no question.
No, it is. And you go from the Adelaide game where we had 10 goal kickers or whatever it may have been, then you go to the Kangaroos game where then Jamie Elliott's kicking 5. So it's you have that. You don't need Jamie Elliott kicking bags and bags every single game, or a McStay, like you said, or a Mychek. You can do it.
In turns.
They do. It's a nice little setup they got going on.
Mychek kicks his 4 or 5, and you might kick 1s or 2s for the next couple of weeks. Membry pops up, kicks 3 on the weekend.
Oh, he's just been an incredible recruit, Membry. Yeah. He has been just everything.
I was a bit worried about him, to be honest. Not obviously he can play, but I'm just thinking, where does he fit in the mix? He's very similar to Mychek, and I think Mychek's probably a slightly better player at this point in time, and and he's probably a bit undersized for a key position, and they've already got speed around the fringes. But he's a good matchup to have, even coming off the bench, because you think about this, you've got, say, Bobby Hill or Lockie Schultz running around. Next thing you know, do a quick swap, and he comes on. Then all of a sudden, he gets a small. And then they're trying to shuffle it around. And they can go 4 medium talls at any stage, but still be mobile with Mychek and also Membry as well. And then obviously McStay, when he comes back, Cox is up there as well. And so there's it's a lot to like about that, because they're hard to match up on, because you can go 4 smalls. Next thing you make 2 quick changes, and then you got 4 talls, and the opposition have got to work out. And then you can isolate your bigger player on the smaller player in the right areas to see if you can get some clear one-on-one. So that's one thing I like about their setup. And you look at it in some ways and go, well, if they've got the 4 of those tools, are they going to have enough pressure on the ball and be able to keep the ball in their front 50? But if you get the matchups right and it goes in, you get some clear one-on-ones, marking player versus a small medium opposition defender, you might get some better looks one-on-one. And it's easy to keep the ball in when you're marking it and kicking goals. You don't have to worry about the pressure component as much.
Yeah, and that's your coaching brain. Like you probably do that as well at with Marby, right? Like just
you look
look
to
for
see if you
any
can
sort
get
of
an
things,
advantage
yeah.
out of the opposition. You look at their matchups and you go, oh, how can we, obviously take advantage of what their weaknesses might be. And you don't want to shuffle things around too much because you want to have some, consistency and continuity in the way you set up and have players settled in certain positions. But if you can get an advantage based on how the opposition look, there's no question that Fly would be certainly doing that.
And Fly is just what he's been able to do with this team, and I think, and I said it in one of my videos as well. The Kangaroos game, yes, for 3 quarters they sort of went with us, and then we turned it on in that last quarter. I felt like after I finished watching that game, it felt like instead of Fly saying, okay, we're going to rest 5 players for this game, we're going to rest the team for 3 quarters, and then we know we can turn it on into gear. Because if you start looking, and I don't have the stats, but if you look at the time spent on ground, Jamie Elliott kicked 5 goals with 75% of the game. Ned Long, Bo McCreary, some of these players were only playing 3 quarters of the game. So in my mind, and correct me if I'm wrong or you have a different sort of point of view, but they were resting in game, and then that last quarter they go, let's go.
We need
Let's
to win
just
it. Leave our best players on for a bit longer.
Yeah.
And because they've rested or brought them on and off at the right times leading into 3/4 time, it gives them a few more tickets late in games. With their more experienced and better players, and it worked. And, North Melbourne put everything into it, and they probably rotated like they normally would and got to 3/4 time, and they're half spent. And then you've got the experienced, high-quality players with Collingwood just running them off their legs in the last quarter. But ironically, once again, they lost clearance again.
We've been talking about this every single week.
Yeah, it would be an interesting game this week against Hawthorn because they lose clearance again against North Melbourne. Even though we still had plus 10 inside 50s, but Hawthorn are in the same boat. They got smashed by Gold Coast. I think minus 17. They were the last 2 weeks against Brisbane and Gold Coast. And they won the tap-outs last week, but Gold Coast got hold of them in the tap-outs department the week before. So our weaknesses are very similar, which should be interesting. But they've really dropped off with their efficiency, Hawthorn. That's where we might be able to get, and it's where we've never been able to get them because they've always been a skillful team, and they've probably always been a little bit more efficient with ball in hand. But looking at the figures, it looks like we've probably nearly got them in that regard now.
Yeah, and I think I think we can pivot straight to that Hawthorn game. And one thing that I love about coming up against this Hawthorn side is they are on the ropes a little bit, and I want to absolutely humble.
You
them.
want to bury them, don't you?
No, you absolutely
You're
do.
A bad man.
You hate them. You absolutely hate them. You absolutely hate them.
I actually nearly hate Hawthorn as much.
No,
as
you
Carlton.
don't say it. No way.
Oh yeah.
No way.
The thumbs up out the back there too. Yeah, there's not. Yeah, a lot of guys, especially with how well they finished and how well they started last year. And how freaking cocky they are.
Yeah.
And they sell themselves well. You got to give them credit for that.
You do. Yeah.
They make you want to watch them. But those, the little fellas up forward, going berserk more. And what's the other guy's name?
Ginnivan and Watson.
Yeah, Watson as well. Obviously, Ginnivan. There's a fair story behind that, linked to the two teams. So, man, they're exciting to watch as much as you hate them. But the fewer celebrations we have, the better. That's. I think we need to start well on the weekend and put them in their place.
Well, that's the biggest thing. One thing that I specifically watched the Lions Hawthorn game because I knew we were coming up against them.
Yeah.
As soon as the Lions put any amount of pressure on them, they crumbled.
Okay.
Hawthorn like that sort of front running easy one over the top, and that's how they can look pretty. And the Hollywood Hawks, that's when they get their backflips and goal celebrations and stuff like that. When they get the easy one at the top, but they don't want to run back. As soon as Brisbane put pressure on them, chopped off their short kicks so they couldn't get that run out.
The first kick has to be taken away. Doesn't it?
And then they just crumble.
Yeah.
And how good are we at putting pressure on? And there's no other guy better than ex-Hawthorn player Ned Long. 14 tackles against the Roos, probably
impressive.
3 Brownlow votes you would think, going up against a club that let him go, and now he's an A-grader.
He's been a phenomenon. He actually complements our midfield better than any other player because he is more of a defensive midfield or defensively minded midfield
Yep.
in terms of pressure, but his hard edge, he halves contests, he helps get the ball back, and he allows the Dacos boys and the Quainers and these guys to get on their bike and get offensive quicker on the outside. So it's important that you at least half those contests, especially when they're not winning clearance as much at the moment, not probably dominating hit-outs. You can get the ball back a bit quicker and you can get some really good looks on turnover through his pressure. Like 14 tackles on the weekend. He's averaging 7 a game, which is in the elite territory. And he's only like a 20 possession getting player, but that's all you need him for. Possessions are so overrated sometimes in this game. It is about what you're doing when the ball's not in your hand, not necessarily when your team's got the footy. So, and that's what he's really good at, is defending well, holding shape, being accountable. But, when the ball's in his area, in the immediate contest or stoppage, he's like an absolute animal.
And that's, something that we've been lacking over the last couple of years, like from last year, because Tom Mitchell has been injured for over a year, and that's what Tom Mitchell sort of did. I think Ned Long is a same sort of player, but a little bit different. But do you think, and there's always the Ned Long, Tom Mitchell comparison, do you think Ned Long's presence in that midfield and what he's been able to do with this team sort of negates the fact that we might not see Jordan De Goey till later on in the year?
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's helped. It's helped with that because, and I think just winning in general, not just the Ned Long factor, but winning in general and having, some troops to lean on. Even the Ed Allens of the world, I mean, he's had 24 touches on the weekend and looks sharp. He looks like a real player.
He does,
He's got a bit of class about him, and he's another big-bodied mid, so he's about 6'3", 6'4".
Yeah, he's a tall boy. I think about whatever
Ned's
Patrick Cripps is,
So big-bodied mids in the Bontempelli sort of category in terms of height and build. But definitely. I mean, when you're in this situation, regardless, I'm not talking about all players, even Schultz for that. Even if they're worried about him, they can rest him for one more week now. Whereas if you're on the back foot and you've only won 2 of your last 4,
pushing him in,
you've got to get them straight back in because we're going to miss the 4, we're going to miss the 8. Now we're sitting pretty.
Yep.
You can play around with it and manage your list a lot better. So Fly's in a really good position to be able to do that, especially with De Goey, given his history of injuries. There's no point pushing him. It's nearly like when you're ready, wait another week, or maybe let's wait 2 weeks and bring him back. Make sure he's absolutely cherry ripe, and then he can get a good block of training in. Because the problem when you bring him back too early, you might get touch sore after that first game, and then you manage yourself through the week, and you're not getting quality training sessions in, and that can be a vicious cycle. And then you get 4 weeks in, hardly training on the Tuesday. And not doing the main training sessions, and then you might be out there playing, getting away with it, but when you get to the pointy end, you want to be like at your absolute fittest and best at that time of the year, and I'm sure they're working towards getting him to that.
And I think that's where we failed with Jordan De Goey last year, because Fly's mantra is fit to play versus fit to perform, and he was fit to play last year, but definitely not what you could see. Evidently, he wasn't fit to perform, but we played him because we needed to win those games. We went on that 0-4 losing streak right after the bye. Then we needed to win our last 5 games or whatever it was, and we obviously dropped that one to Sydney.
Yeah.
But we kept forcing him to play because we didn't have the troops, because we had 17 players injured at one stage.
That's right.
But now, like you said, we can hold off on these players because we've got these cattle that just go, okay, we're ready to play, we're ready to perform. Will Parker, is coming in, and Ed Sullivan, and I keep getting them. Ed Allen, Lockie Sullivan as well. Lockie Sullivan's a bit of a forgotten man in the team, but he's doing well. Will Hoskin-Elliott, and now, talking about the ins and outs. When has a team ever brought in the caliber of players that we might be bringing in this week? It's absolutely
you got Schultz,
insane.
Maynard, Pendles, Sidebottom, Moore, Hill, Mitchell with a question mark. Obviously, he's probably a couple of weeks away, I would have thought. Is there anyone else I've missed off that list? Maynard I've got on there.
Well, Maynard won't be. He's still got that plantar.
Oh, okay.
So even Maynard ruptured his plantar. Could play next week against Melbourne if he needed to. But you probably won't. But it's Hill, Schultz, Moore, Pendlebury, Sidebottom. That's right. 4 premiership players.
There's some medals in there,
Yeah.
and some goal kickings and leading goal kickers and so forth. So, yeah, it's a great list. Jesus, mate, if you pulled that list out of any other team in terms of quality versus quality, there's no chance any other team would be winning games.
No.
Of footy. Yeah.
No.
And that just goes to show how well the recruiting staff have been, the coaching staff have been sensational in developing their young players and giving them make sure they're educated enough for a solid understanding of what their role is and what's required on any given weekend. Those young players that have come in have done a fantastic job.
And, I guess the harsh reality of the AFL, not even just the system, just the week in, week out of it, is that, yes, five of these players are going to come in.
Yeah.
5 players have to come out of the side, and it
Yeah.
probably will be, those younger sort of players. Ed Allen, even though he had a good game, might find himself on the sub, on the sub bench again. But these are the guys where we talk about. Okay, maybe we can give Lockie Schultz another rest, but if Sidebottom and Pendlebury are ready to go, you're bringing them straight in against the Hawks as well.
Yeah.
Again, we want to humble those bloody Hawks.
Yeah, I mean, there's some philosophies you could have a think about or use when you're bringing 5 players in. Does it unsettle you off a win, or does it? These fresh players coming in, are they frothing and just ready to perform versus being a little bit bogged down by a few niggles and being a little bit fatigued from the week before? Are they just frothing and ready to burst and just making the team better? So it'll be interesting to see how we start. It'll be interesting to see how we play over the course of the 4 quarters. But either way, you can't not bring those players into the team, regardless of a win last week.
Do you think maybe they, Fly and the coaches do a bit of a mix of resting a couple of the older guys that are in the team at the moment, keeping in some of the younger guys, as opposed to, taking out 5 of the lesser, not lesser. That's a wrong word, but just the inexperienced, and then giving Jamie Elliott a rest because he is 31 and putting Bobby Hill into his place.
Quite possibly. I mean, you don't want to muck around with it too much, but they've been able to manage things and shuffle 1 or 2 players each week, travelling, older players, this, that and the other. I think everyone needs their turn at a rest at some stage. If they've got luxury to do it, why wouldn't you do it? You want every single player in the best possible mindset going into it every single week and then making sure that you peak at the right time. Because the problem with teams in the past, you even see with Sydney last year, flying all year, get a couple of little niggles late in the year and just weren't quite ready mentally. Should they have shuffled things around and done the same thing at some stage? Maybe. I don't know. But I think while it's working, you may as well keep doing it. There's obviously some players there that may need a rest, and you're talking about Elliott there. I'm not sure if he's missed a game this year or not.
No, he hasn't. No.
So, but you want to take 5 goals away.
Well, that's the thing.
Team. Yeah.
That's the thing as well. Like, and we kind of said the same thing leading into that Fremantle game. It's like, do we really want to take Pendlebury out of the game who has been playing well? And even Steele last week, you go, Steele's had a career best year since 2016. Like, are we really, taking him out? And
I think we've been nervous every time Fly's done this, haven't we?
And we keep getting proven wrong as well.
We've been really nervous. Resting Pendlebury, resting Sidebottom. What are we doing here? If we lose a game because of this, then it might put us, it might be a difference between a third and first.
Yep.
And then not getting a home final, whatever the case may be. Who knows? But it's worked.
It has,
and it's worked well. Now it's time to continue it and just manage your players right through to the end, knowing that we've got the confidence in so many players right to the 30. Probably got 30 players there that can get the job done, which is a lot of depth. We haven't even had a go with Charlie West yet, so look forward to seeing him hopefully at some stage. But Fly, keep managing your list the way you are, mate.
You're doing it well.
Fly's flying.
Fly is flying. Fly is
Thought
flying.
I'd throw in a little dad joke there for you.
How do you see this Hawthorn game sort of going? No, I said, we put pressure on them. They should be able to crumble a little bit. I don't know what the weather's sort of looking like, but there are sort of
have a look, shall we?
Have a look, because there are areas in the Hawthorn side where I think we'll be able to sort of overcome them. Like their forward line the only tall in the forward line is Chol, and maybe Gunston's that sort of medium forward, kind of like that memory type. Gunston is still a premiership player, great player.
Yeah, he's averaging 3 goals a game.
You know what?
So he's a player to watch.
But bringing more in, so losing Maynard, but bringing more in. Frampton in good form. Jeremy Howe, Isaac Quaynor played his best game for the season last week against the Roos, so he's coming into a bit of form now, thankfully. You know, you only ones you're sort of watching are those smaller type of
Sounds
players.
silly, but you probably don't need Frampton this week in a lot of ways.
Exactly
if you bring him more in, because Howe can take Gunston or one of those mediums could probably take Gunston, but what they'll probably end up playing more on Gunston, I would have thought, or maybe Frampton plays as that anchor, which he has been in previous weeks, and more plays as your high key. And then whoever goes to them, and they just keep rolling off.
True.
I think with the way they're playing, it probably doesn't matter whether you got an extra tall or an extra small at the moment. You've seen it last week and the week before, going in with probably too many smalls or mediums down back, and they've still been able to roll off and support in the air and then get some good rebound and scores from turnover. So it'll be interesting to see. It looks like there's only 1 millimetre of rain, so it should stay away in 16 degrees and a bit overcast. So I mean, Hawthorn have probably gone from that real strong kicking team a little bit like they were in the three-peat. But they've sort of, for whatever reason, they've dropped off in that area in efficiency over the last couple of weeks because sides are starting to press in hard on them and pressure them and force turnover. Yeah. And they just lost a little bit of confidence. So if Collingwood can get their pressure game going and roll in on them, don't give them that first kick and then sit back and defend the middle part of the ground. Let's defend, your front half of the ground really hard and give them absolutely nothing. And let's see if we can get the ball back quicker and keep the ball in our front half.
No, 100, couldn't agree more. Hawthorn are almost like, I don't know why we're going so hard in on Hawthorn at the moment, but they're almost like keyboard warriors. Like they talk a big game, but as soon as you sort of call them out,
no trolls are they?
They just
Hawthorn troll.
Yeah, you know what I mean. They just pull back a little bit, and you saw that.
Well, they're like the schoolyard bullies, aren't they? Like you got that kid that stands at the front with all these big mates in behind him. His mouth's off, and
I know because I used to get bullied by those guys in high school, so I know what those
and
guys are.
And as soon as you get on the front foot and give him a whack, then they go to water. They could be that type of team, maybe. No more celebrations, no more chest out. You got to get on top of them early in that regard. Put pressure on them. Let them turn it over. Get them here.
Yes, yeah.
Because if they get a couple of scores early and the chest's out and the celebration, they're doing their silly little handshakes and all that crap. That's where they draw confidence and through each other and that energy together as a group. You got to take the energy away from them and create a bit of negative energy and maybe sledge a little bit and get in their face and get hard and get tackle pressure high. Take all that energy away from them, and if you do that, you can make them look second rate.
And I think that's why it's a great time that Lachie Schultz is good to go this week, because his pressure and harassment throughout the last, at the start of the year was second to none. They've chucked Bo McCreary in the middle a lot, and what he's been able to do, especially even last week, going the old 1-2 of Ned Long and Bo McCreary in the middle. I think Bo even had like 9 tackles or something like that. But his speed out of the middle, his inside, inside 50s,
strong, powerful, hard at the footy.
Yeah,
he's a good clearance player,
almost like a Dane Swan type, just not racking up. And you want him to get his numbers up a little bit in goals.
Only there for 3, 4, 5 minutes at a time, and then swinging back forward. Just a bit of a different look and a bit of burst out of the middle. And if he's in there, he's going to give you grunt and hardness and speed. A little bit like when they tried it with Jamie Elliott a few years ago as well. Similar scenario. So they've got some options there, no question. But what are our thoughts on Tom Mitchell and whether or not, number one, he's likely to come back, even if he's in ripping form? Is he likely to come back in? Has Ned Long taken his spot now, do we think? Yeah. It's still a 30 possession getting player. We know what he can do at the top level. He's helped us win a flag in 23. He is the number 6 as well. So
you need the number 6 back out on the MCG.
Just for luck, mate. Just for luck. Right.
Look, I love Tom Mitchell. I love everything goes about him. He was the catalyst of our flag in 23. He's been doing okay in the VFL. Albeit has had a year out of football just in general. Is there a place for Ned Long and Tom Mitchell on the same team? I think so. I think, and I said this a little bit earlier, they are very similar players, but I think they're a little bit differently. You know, you said that Ned Long is more of that defensive-minded. He can split packs when he needs to, but I feel like Tom Mitchell is more bury himself in the pack and extract.
Yeah.
Tom Mitchell's the extractor, whereas Ned Long is a bulldozer almost, is how I would see
Mitchell reads it off the hands better than Long still at this stage. I think he understands where it's going. He can shark the opposition taps. He understands how to read it off the hands and the timing aspect, the body work and owning good grass. He's very good at that. And he's a genuine clearance player. And if you look at the numbers of
that's the next point.
If he can get you 8 to 10 clearances a game alone and feed to the outside to the runners that we're talking about previously, that's something that we need at the moment. Instead of having to lose the ball and get it back and score from turnover, let's get our high scores from stoppage and see if we can lock it in our front half, worst case scenario, and reset. And he'll be able to help us with that.
And again, another caliber player that we have waiting in the wings, ready to go. But do you need him to... What do his numbers need to be? Because Fly said in his presser, he's good to go. His body's good to go. We just need to get his performance up.
Yeah.
What sort of numbers as a premiership Brownlow medalist?
For me, I mean, it's a hard one in terms of numbers. I hate numbers sometimes, but you still probably want to see the 3 and the O at VFL regardless. But you just want to see evidence that his pressure is really strong. Like Ned Long's throwing his body in like a maniac, and you can just see he's influencing the stoppage in the game just through willing himself into the contest. You'd like to see a bit of that from Tommy and then get up and be able to run from A to B to C, cover a lot of territory and still rack up the possessions, but get his clearance work just working really well. Sharp hands, quick kicks out of stoppage, setting our runners up on the outside. I'd like to see a few more 30s, a couple more 30s and some metres gained in the process, and just seem like you just know when someone's playing with real confidence. They've just got that bit of swagger about them. They've got that running gait there, and the numbers and the data's looking strong, and we'll know when he's ready.
Well, and that's the thing. Like he doesn't at the moment. Like watching a lot of the VFL now, he doesn't have that Tom Mitchell aura about him. And I think that's just a confidence thing, like being out of the game, and it's all foot injuries, but you can see that he's slowly building himself up. First game he had 50% of game time, and then the last 2 games has been, full game time, managing minutes as well. But he hasn't taken the game by the scruff of the neck yet, like he usually does. And I think that will come. And I do really, really, really want to see, especially before finals, if Ned Long and a Tom Mitchell can work in the same team, because could you imagine if they can work in the same team together? It's Nick Dacos is loving life.
It would be good to have him back for those reasons. And the one thing I'm a bit concerned about, if anything, being the devil's advocate, having a foot injury or an Achilles injury and having a lot of time out and then coming back, it just stifles your momentum with fitness. And as much as you're doing the bike or swimming or whatever the case may be, it does take time to get that consistency in your running again, and then you get back into running, and then you're playing, and you haven't got that base running for a period of time behind you, so that when you play 2 or 3, 4 games in a row, your body starts to fatigue a little bit because you haven't got that base and behind you and that residual fitness, so to speak. So that's where the first couple of games you can be fresher and you feel good. But then as soon as you start to, hips start to get sore and your legs start to get a bit sore and you get a couple of niggles, you don't feel fresh for the 3rd, 4th and 5th weeks. And then, so he might need to grind through that period and out the other side and build this residual fitness up. And then you'll see, and that's why he's saying he hasn't got that aura about him. And that's maybe why he's going through that period at the moment, which is real tricky, which he's trying hard, but it's not quite getting the results he wants. You just have to push through it, and all of a sudden he'll get through the other side and he'll go, shit, I'm back. And he'll know, and everyone will know when he's back, and then the coaches will go, he's ready.
That must be what they're waiting for then, just getting a bunch of games under his belt and coming through this period like you said. Off air, we sort of touched on what Mick Moldhouse would say about you guys in the VFL.
Yeah.
How did he respond to putting you guys in the VFL?
Yeah, I think for some players he was a bit different, but I think he wanted you to bang the door down, like he literally just bang the door down, and force your way back into that team. Like I mean, the difference between VFL and AFL is quite a big step up, as you know. So you can't just be playing good footy. You've got to be standing out. You've got to be playing AFL level. Like Fly talks about it, playing AFL level footy at VFL, standing out and looking like an AFL footballer playing VFL. So, you know, you'd like to, especially someone like Mitchell, you don't want to throw him in for the sake of throwing him in. You want to see him at that level before you bring him back. And that goes for any other player too, especially in the situation they're in at the moment when the winning games are footy and the club's, you know, you're really exciting place to be around at the moment. There's form coming from everywhere. They're not just going to throw you in for the sake of it. They're looking for. I mean, Charlie West's kicking 3 or 4 goals a game in the VFL,
and he can't get a crack in the team.
Yeah, you know. So I don't know what he needs to do, but it's when you're winning, you don't want to change a winning lineup unless you're managing players like they've done in the past. So. Mick used to want you to be seriously banging the door down, like dominating VFL before he brought you back in.
Which makes, I guess it makes sense though. Like you said, you're not just because you're a big name, you don't automatically get the call up just because you've played one VFL game.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and I assume, well, what I would want to see is DeGoey doing the same thing in the VFL, like Tom Mitchell is doing. Like when he comes back, I don't want him to come back from, you know, which he does have, like that Achilles or whatever it may be, out for 8 weeks and then straight back into the senior side.
You want him absolutely monstering, you know, these VFL teams, making them look second rate.
And it just gives him confidence as well that he can do it and it can sort of come through. But I guess
in 2010, going back that far when we won the flag, who did we have in the? Can you remember who we had in the twos?
We had
and they were dominating.
Aubrey, Lockyer, I reckon.
Well, we definitely had Paul Medhurst playing as well. And 2 years earlier, he was all Australian and kicked 40 or 50 goals.
Yeah.
And, Josh Fraser was playing in the twos as well and playing really good footy. Those guys were dominating. So, but I think you need to have that. You need to have 3 to 5 players who are very good senior players that are missing out on games to be able to obviously push for a flag. That is a sign of a premiership-like team.
And I think what that does as well is it makes the guys in the AFL team not rest on their laurels.
Correct.
They need to perform because they know. You're
playing on edge, aren't you? You're always going, geez, I better perform. Or even the last quarter when you're already winning, it's a good time to get a few more possessions, a couple more tackles, get the stats
couple more 1-2s,
so that I don't get pushed out because this bloke's coming back in potentially next week. So, yeah, it keeps everyone on edge. Everyone's got a little bit of an extra 3% to give because of that pressure from underneath.
Yes,
and it improves the performance of the
and we saw that
team.
in 2023 as well. Maybe not to the extent of 2010, but we saw a little bit of that. But still talking about the VFL, mid-season draft is coming up today. So this will go up before that. That drops at 6:30. We'll drop this one a little bit earlier than that.
Pick 8 and pick 15.
Yeah, so two. So the only downside to being so good and on top of the ladder and incredible is that we get the end of the round sort of picks. And at the moment, we've got a couple of players that we're into. A couple of Collingwood VFL players that we know that they love recruiting from the VFL side. Ned Long was a Collingwood VFL player before he played with us. We've got a history of picking up really good players in the VFL. In the mid-season draft. John Noble, Josh Carmichael, Ash Johnson, Begg didn't really come on too much, but Iluru Smith, we got a good track record.
Well, it's a good time. Like you think about it now, like just going away from Collingwood just for a sec. Like I look at because when I was coaching Northern Bull Ants, we had Brandon Ryan, who was a Marby boy actually, where I coached. He got drafted to Hawthorn mid-season, 200 centimetre key forward. But Hawthorn contracted him for 6 months, then recontracted him, and then used him as bait to get Gunston back. And then Brandon at the moment, you know, through injuries and this, that, and the other, hasn't played up in Brisbane yet. So Hawthorn have kind of, I mean, if you get it right, I mean, sorry, Brandon, I'm not saying anything bad about you because you've been injured and he's still coming through, finding his way in the AFL system. But you can actually use players. I know it sounds bad, but if you get the right mid-season player, and next thing you know, bring them in for a couple of games and they perform, you can use them as bait for trade at the end of the year as well. Even better if you can get them going well in your own
100%.
system,
and
get something from them for the next 5, 6, 7 years. Even better. But there's two ways you can sort of look at this: use them for bait, or get them in on long-term deals, and you got a player that you wouldn't have thought you'd have normally, and you've found a player from nothing.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty about the mid-season draft. I was doing a video last night, a live stream, and one of my mates, Pommy, he said that the average mid-season draft player that gets picked up plays 7.8 games.
Yeah.
It is, you hear Newcombs and Pickett coming in for the grand final from a mid-season draft, which is amazing.
So those guys push the average right up.
Yeah.
So you're probably looking at 80% don't play a game.
Yeah, exactly right. So it is hit and miss, but when they can hit, and by all means, it sounds like the guys that Collingwood are after, and maybe you can sort of talk a little bit about them as well. So Archer May, Riley Mason, you got big raps on Riley Mason.
Riley Mason, I was trying to get to Bullants a couple of years ago, and he wouldn't pick his phone up. And then I obviously got hold of him. He sent me his number when it was all too late. He was already signed, I think, back at Seymour to play at Collingwood this year, and he's just an elite runner, and he's tall, can play multiple positions. I know he's played up forward and kicking goals for Collingwood as well. So, but apparently his GPS data is off the charts. Like, he's running like an AFL player at the moment in terms of covering territory. So he might be one they might look at, although they probably need a key back at the moment.
Yep.
Well, not right now, as long as Moore's okay.
Yeah, and Frampton's doing what he's doing.
Frampton's doing what he's doing. He's okay. And then you got McInnes for next year. But it's a hard one because you want to find, some teams are looking to, and the whole point is to find what you need, what your gaps are.
Yep.
So if Collingwood need, let's say they need someone to, obviously they wouldn't need key forward because they've got plenty of them. But let's talk about the key back. Bring someone in the side that's winning at the moment. You can bring them in and pre-season draft them, but they're probably not going to get an opportunity unless someone gets injured.
Yeah.
But they're going to be there for backup. But for a bottom end team, they might need someone to lock for an Essendon, and they need a bit of everything.
They got 4 players that could probably
you'd be really
play
excited to get drafted there at the moment because you're a big chance of getting a game.
Yeah.
And that's an exciting proposition. For the Collingwood one, you'd feel like you're going there and then you're going to sit as a backup for 6 months or a few months, and then you're going to be out. That's how you'd feel it would be, and unless you can get in and dominate in the VFL, and they go, wow, this kid could be good for next year. So, there's a few ways to look at it, and you can nominate in that draft 6 months or
like an 18-month contract.
18-month contract as well. For Brandon Ryan, I was really keen for him to get an 18-month contract, but at the death when Hawthorn were going to draft him, they said, no, we're only going to take you if you take us 6 months. So I was a bit shitty about that because I'm thinking they could just use him for a few months and
then get rid of him,
and then get rid of him, and then we've lost a player at the Bull Ants as well, and our best player basically. So so there's a few things to contend with this, and a few things to look at, and then thinking about that, if you're a chance to get picked up in the national draft, you guaranteed a 2-year deal. So you have to sign a 2-year deal on that. So do you want to take a 6-month deal and then be out, or do you want to wait to the end of the year
and try and get drafted
that way, and then you get a full preseason, you get to know the game plan and understand the playing group that you're playing with. That could be a bit of an advantage too, but you need to know where you're at and what your chances look like before you make that decision.
Yeah, it is a bit of an interesting one because I know that it's been reported that Archie May, the Subiaco forward that Collingwood are really into, Dermot Burridon's coaching him one-on-one, which is incredible.
Right.
Collingwood have said put an 18-month contract on your head. So it scares other clubs away. I know we have to wait 8 picks, but they love him that much that they're saying we want you to scare other clubs away by putting a 1.5-year contract on you. So we'll pick you up. And look,
don't you just love that Collingwood are looking at big key forwards of quality
finally,
at the moment?
Finally,
we haven't really done it,
no,
have we?
No.
Yeah, so we've gone and traded a few in. We've got a couple of kids in and the good thing about them and Ruckman, if you get it right and find the right ones, and they've got talent to burn, Worst case scenario, if you're not using them, you can get heaps for them
They're a
in
good commodity
trades.
to have. Yeah.
They're a commodity,
Yeah.
and it's good to obviously GWS have done it, shuffled blokes around and got good guys in and good guys out. So I like the way they're going in that regard.
Yeah, and you're right. Like we've drafted a couple of good ruckmen in the mid-season draft. Like we talked about Smith. I think Oscar Steen might have been in the mid-season draft as well, who are coming along really well. But Archie Riley Mason, Josh Brown as well as a midfielder. We're probably stacked for mids, but sometimes these guys, especially because they're in the Collingwood VFL side, they're playing AFL standard football, and we talked about that a little bit earlier, without being on an AFL list. Like Josh Brown is just dominating, and he looks really good. And sometimes Collingwood's philosophy sometimes has been, okay, we might have everyone that we want. Let's just get the best possible guy at our pick, and that could be a 10th inside mid, but he's the best guy available, and he could go past.
Well, I think that's what they need to probably do now. They can look at for what they need in the draft, specifically what they need, but it's a cheeky way to get the best possible player now. Get a quick little squeeze at them. They can always throw them back on a rookie list or shuffle things around next year if they're good enough and if they perform at VFL level. Because I just don't know, even if they get a key young back, even if they get an injury, are they going to use him or are they just going to go short?
Exactly
and use
right.
the Howells and the Maynards as their keys, as their secondary keys, which they've done already anyway. So if anything, they need key backs, but they're probably not going to get an opportunity even if they come in.
That's the thing. They're usually mid-season draft picks who like to plug holes. We don't really have that at the moment because, like, if we say we get an Archie May, right? Charlie West has kicked 20 goals in the VFL. He can't get a look at.
Well, it's the same anyway, isn't it? Really, probably Charlie West is still probably going to be ahead of him regardless at this point in time. So, but once again, they're obviously building for the future. And using that draft to do that.
Yeah, and if you could have Mason and West or May and West for the next 10, 12 years, Jesus, it's about
exciting.
It's about
exciting.
time.
Some potency, young, potent, talented players there, which is really exciting to see how they're going to develop over the next however long.
Are you an advocate for mid-season trading?
I was thinking about this the other night because I was talking about on 360. Look, I like the concept, but I'd like to know the barriers around it and how it would work exactly. Because the one thing I love about football is the players that are staunch and loyal and want to stay at the one player, the one club scenario. How is it going to look? I mean, the last thing you want is a player is dominating a good young player. Might be a 20-year-old. Look, even for Charlie West, for instance. Imagine he's dominating still next year, still not getting an opportunity because we're winning. And then someone needs a key forward and they're trading one of your best young players out. I would hate to see that happen.
100%, yeah.
So I would love to see the barriers and the protocols around it. And maybe it is that, they have to play a certain amount of games or whatever. I'm not sure, but I think it's doable. But I'd hate to see my best young talent leave my club.
That's the thing,
because of a situation like this. And then if you're going well and winning games for like we are at the moment, someone might come in and poach our up and coming players, and then 2 years later you need these guys and they're not there. So I'd like to see how it's going to look.
It could be, thinking just right now, could be maybe, I don't know, you can only trade free agents or something. Because, look, West Coast more than likely know that Oscar Allen is going at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Why not just send him now? You're not winning games anyway. At mid-season trade, send him to wherever he wants to go. Get a player back or get a good draft pick back. You're going to get one at the end of the... Stops the speculation, stops the talking, and he gets to be happy and play for. Yeah. It's not like the soccer where there's unlimited. Well, there's no salary cap. You can just do whatever you want. Like you could poach someone mid-season.
If the restrictions are there and you don't have to do anything you don't want to do, it's completely up to you. I like it. I'm all for it. But if there's too much flexibility and you can be poached, I'm not sure.
That's the hardest part. The poaching of the poaching of the players. But do you have any questions? I've got a couple of questions from fans.
Yeah, maybe you throw one out and then I'll throw one out too. I did put a little post up last minute this morning, so let's see if anyone. It's been a bit quiet actually. No one's on Instagram this morning.
I got one from Teresa Jade.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about Pies falling off a cliff. Is that something you're concerned about?
No.
Yeah, good. Well, hey, all right, next question.
I would say no because they've just got too much depth. I think if 4 or 5 players got injured at the moment, they got coverage. Would it hurt their premiership chances? Possibly.
Yeah,
but they're not falling off a cliff in a hurry.
yeah,
Sorry, love.
We just saw that as well. Like having all of our, 5 premiership players, pretty much not playing.
Yeah.
And we're still winning. Games.
Yeah.
Jonesy says, Dutchy, who do you feel was the Pies bogey side in your playing days? We talked about Hawthorn at the moment.
Oh, the bogey side nowadays. Jeez. That's a good question. It is a very good question. Early days when I first got to Collingwood, it was probably Essendon. They were just on fire in those first couple of years. But after that, I don't know, West Coast maybe.
Yeah,
we struggled with them, with the Judds and the Cousins of the world. We had a couple of good wins over them, but especially at home, we struggled to beat them there for a bit. But yeah, I can't remember too many bogey. You'd have to say Brisbane, wouldn't you? Really?
Oh, true. Yeah, that was a big bogey.
That's the obvious.
That's the obvious bogey.
Yeah.
I guess, and finally, given the form of Mason Cox, and we talked about 3 disposals on the weekend, does a little bit of things here and there. Should we be looking at debuting one of our young ruckmen? Now, and that was from Justin all night. So I am a big advocate of what is Cox doing in the side that Oscar Steen couldn't do in the side? A ruck forward. Yeah,
I think the one thing that we've got trust in Cox in at the moment is he can ruck.
Yep.
He can ruck with competence, second up. And even though he's not marking the footy as well and getting a lot of possessions, he understands where he needs to be and how to set up. And that's one thing that's still very much underestimated in this game. Is you bring a young player in, and when you get put under heat and your lungs are burning, to think and make good decisions under pressure, and then getting the right positions, and not just the right position in the structure, but body positioning to make plays around you better. Cox can do that. He can nestle in. He can seal off. He can take back shoulder when he knows that how far away the ball is. And he can lean up and give you a contest. Although, is it time to give one of these guys an opportunity based on the fact that we're winning and winning well, and that even if he plays a bad game anyway, first up, or for a couple of games, it's not going to cost you games of footy necessarily. So it might be worth it. Might be worth throwing him in, but I see why they're continuing to play with Cox.
So you're not too concerned about his low... I know you said you don't like numbers and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But 3 disposals on the weekend, not that many marks.
Yeah.
He didn't have a hit out to advantage for 2 or 3 quarters.
Yeah.
You're not too concerned. It's just more about the positioning.
I do think that maybe he needs a rest, to be honest. I've been a massive rap for Mason Cox the whole way through, even when we wasn't performing in previous years. But I feel like he's lost a bit of confidence at the moment. When they've lost confidence, it's probably time, regardless. So, regardless of what I just said, and backing him up in terms of being able to understand his role really well, I think, let's bring the next troop in and give him a crack. I think.
Well, we'll see in the next few weeks. Look, before we leave, prediction for the Hawks game, and do you have? Because I know I've been sitting on this all day. Do you have a TV show or a movie that you recommend? At the moment,
a TV show or a movie? TV show. Well, geez. TV shows that I recommend. I'm going way back. I like the Game of Thrones and Breaking Bads. I don't think we've seen better series. I
don't think so. No.
Stranger Things was a pretty good one.
Yeah,
too,
I love Breaking Bad. Better Call Saul's really good as well.
Yeah,
I've been a big fan of Clarkson's Farm at the moment. Top Gear. So Clarkson, Jeremy Clarkson, one of the Top Gear guys, he has this series on Amazon, not sponsored, but if Amazon wants to sponsor us, that'd be amazing. Where he runs a farm. He runs a farm for just a nice. You just put it on. You have a tea. I'm folding the clothes while I'm watching it. Yep. He's dealing with birthing of cows and stuff and putting crops in it. He knows nothing about farming, but it's just fun. It's just a nice, relaxing Rainy day watch.
Sounds like you're right into it, mate.
Oh.
Actually, the one series I watched recently that I haven't liked the series was White Lotus.
I haven't seen season 3, but the first 2 seasons were incredible.
They're wicked. Yeah, I really enjoyed those. Get
amongst it. All right, so I've got the Pies by 35 points.
I think it'll be a tight one. I reckon it's going to be on for young and old. I think the Pies will win by 2 goals.
Nice. Done. Dutchy, thank you so much, mate.
Pleasure, mate, always. Looking forward to next week already. Go the Pies.
Go the Pies. And you can find us on our new Instagram, the Dutchy and Swoop Show, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, up to Mags.